Hello, so today we're going to look at topic 1.10, adding unlike fractions and mixed numbers. So we're going to be adding unlike fractions today and then also looking at mixed numbers and how to add those. So the difference between a like fraction and an unlike fraction is the denominator. We added and subtracted like fractions where we had the same denominator, and we just added the numerators, or we subtracted the numerators, and then we made sure our answer was in lowest terms. But today we're looking at making unlike fractions like. They need to have the same denominator in order for us to be able to add or subtract them. So that's going to be our focus for this lesson. The first example is asking us to find the sum. We're adding 2/3 plus 3/4, and we can see right away that the denominators are different. So what we have to be thinking about is our lowest common denominator. How can we make these two denominators like? So we look at 3 and 4 and we ask ourselves, what number does 3 and 4 make that is common and the lowest one we can get? And the answer for that is going to be 12. We know that 3 times 4 is 12, and so it works out well that that's actually the lowest number that they both create. So what we have to do now is we have to change each fraction, raising the terms to have a denominator of 12. So we're going to take 2/3 and we ask ourselves, okay, how do I get to 12? I have to multiply this denominator by 4 in order to make 12, and so because of that I have to do the same with my numerator. So this is going to raise the term, 12 for my denominator and 8 for my numerator. I'm going to do the same with my 3/4. This time up here I'm going to multiply by 3. That gives me 12, and because I multiplied by 3 in the denominator, I have to multiply by 3 in the numerator, and that's going to give me 9 over 12. So what I'm doing now is I'm going to add 8/12 plus 9/12. So when we add our like fractions, we learned before that we don't touch the denominator, right? We don't add those. The denominator stays as 12, and we simply add our numerators. 8 plus 9 is 17. Now what we're left with here is an improper fraction. So we're going to change this improper fraction to a mixed number. We're going to do that by dividing up. So 12 goes into 17 one time, with 5 left over 12. And so our final answer here is 1 5/12 is the sum. For example 2, we're going to be finding the sum of 5/6 plus 3/4. Again, we're looking for our lowest common multiple. What is the number that 6 and 4 make that is the lowest? Now you may be hoping to multiply 6 times 4, and in a pinch that's a great strategy. That will always give you a multiple of the numbers, but will it give you the lowest common multiple? Maybe not. Not the end of the world. You can reduce your fraction to lowest terms at the end, but better would be to try to find the lowest number. 6 and 4 both make 12. So rather than multiplying them together, we can be thinking the lowest common multiple is 12 of both of these numbers. So how do I get to 12? I'm going to multiply by 2, 6 times 2, and I'm going to multiply by 2 in my numerator. And from 4 to get to 12, I'm going to multiply by 3 and do the same in my numerator. So I'm going to write the new fractions below. 5 times 2 is 10 over 12, plus 3 times 3 is 9 over 12. And again, when I'm adding fractions that are like, I keep my denominator and I add my numerators. You will find with a lot of these, you're going to end up with an improper fraction. So we're going to change it now to a mixed number. 12 goes into 19 one time with 7 left over 12. And I just take a quick check, is my fractional part in lowest terms? It is, so I'm finished now. If you were to multiply 6 times 4 and get a denominator of 24, this would not be the end of the world. You would simply have to reduce your fraction to lowest terms at the end, and you would still end up with 1 7/12 as your final answer. Example 3, we now have mixed numbers. So how do we tackle mixed numbers? Probably, well, there's a couple ways, of course, but the easiest way for us today is to not worry about the whole numbers, but to change the fractional portion. So what we're going to do is we're going to hold this 5 and this 3, and we're going to add them either in our mind or on paper. So we're going to say, okay, that's going to make an 8 for the whole numbers, and then let me worry about my fractions now. So I have 3/8 plus 1/4. What's my lowest common multiple of 8 and 4? Well, 4 makes 8, so that's actually wonderful. I'm only going to have to change one of the fractions because my lowest common multiple is 8. So I don't have to touch the 3/8. I simply have to raise the terms of the 1/4 by multiplying by 2. So that's going to give me 3/8 plus 2/8, and that's going to be 5/8. So the fractional part added is equal to 5/8, and the whole number added is equal to 8. So I put those two together, and my final answer is going to be 8 and 5/8. So now we're going to go ahead and do a few more together. 1.10 do together on page 73. So we're going to add and reduce all of our answers to lowest terms. So for number 1, we're looking at 15 and 6, asking ourselves what's the lowest common multiple. You may be multiplying in your head, making a list, but I'm going to look at 15 times 2 is 30, and 6 does make 30, so my lowest common multiple is 30. So I ask myself, how am I going to get to 30? I'm going to multiply by 2, and I'm going to multiply by 5. And what I do in my denominator, I'm going to do in my numerator for each of the fractions. So I'm going to rewrite my fractions, raised terms. 2 times 2 is 4 over 30, plus 1 times 5 is 5 over 30. And now I'm ready to add my fractions. Denominator stays the same. 4 plus 5 is 9. And I ask myself, is this fraction in lowest terms? It isn't. I can divide both of these numbers by 3. So I'm going to reduce my fraction now to lowest terms. 9 divided by 3 is 3. 30 divided by 3 is 10. So my final answer is 3/10. For number 2, I have mixed numbers. I'm going to use the same strategy as I showed in the earlier example. I'm going to be adding my 2 whole numbers, putting that kind of on the side. That's going to be 9, and then I worry about my fractions. 5 and 2 have the lowest common multiple of 10. So I'm going to be making them into 10. So I'm going to be multiplying the first fraction by 2, and I'm going to be multiplying the second fraction by 5. And let me rewrite it for myself so I can see really clearly, so I don't make any mistakes. 6/10 plus 5/10. That's going to give me 11/10. So now I have an improper fraction. So what I want to do is I want to change this improper fraction to a mixed number. So I'm going to divide up. 10 goes into 11 once, with 1 left over out of 10. Now don't forget, you have that 9 over there, the result of adding 6 plus 3. So we're going to add those two together now. So we're going to add 9 plus the 1 and the 1/10. So just to write that a bit more clearly, 9 plus 1 and 1/10. My final answer is going to be 10 and 1/10. So 6 3/5 plus 3 1/2 gives me 10 and 1/10. For number 3, we have two proper fractions. Take a look at the denominators. They're not like. Ask yourself, what's the lowest common multiple? 3 and 6, well, 3 makes 6, so the lowest common multiple is 6. So I only need to change one of my fractions. A little bit less work, hooray! So I'm going to rewrite below 5/6 plus 2/6 is equal to 7/6. Again, improper fraction, so I'm going to change to a mixed number. Divide up. 6 goes into 7 one time, with 1 left over out of 6. So my final answer there is 1 1/6.